Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 out today. Got another tier list for you guys. Now, I apologize for this tier list actually coming out a little bit later than I had anticipated. Well, actually, a little bit earlier than I had anticipated, if I'm being honest, because I didn't realize that newer players and returning players had different schedules. I knew that newer returning players got a bit more rewards than veteran players, but wasn't aware that you guys actually have things in week 3, and mine are in week 4. So the artifact selector and the limited hero selector, those two will be covering in a massive tier list in all in one video, one-stop shop here for you guys. But yeah, I apologize for that. I should have been paying a little bit more attention to the details of the update, but here we are. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this limited 5-star hero selector tier list. First, you can use the timestamps below to jump ahead to anything that you'd like, including the artifact selector tier list too. So starting off with the tiers, we're keeping things simple. 4 tiers. S tier is the must-have category. We're talking about things in terms of PvP mostly. There are going to be some little bits of PvE that get sprinkled in there for these unit reviews that might impact where they are in the overall ranking, but in the S tier we have the must-have units. I think every account will benefit from having these units around, and in the current meta, we're talking about things going on right now in our TA2. A tier is going to be the strong tier. They're going to be units that are pretty solid in general. I'd say that you can use them pretty much in most situations, not necessarily super niche, right? It can be splashable, can be adjustable, and yeah, just an overall solid thing to have on your account. B tier is going to be the niche category. These are units that are used in very specific circumstances, but they're not necessarily going to be like super versatile. You'll see them pop up here and there with specific team comps, right? And your team is more centered around having them there. And the last tier is going to be the C tier, which is the outdated tier. I'm just putting this in here as a little like section for units. I think just other units perform their jobs better, or that they really could just use a little bit of a buff from Smallgate. Now, don't let any of these tiers discourage you from picking a unit that you like. I hear from a lot of people that are saying, oh, you know, I want to just optimize the account for this and that. If you want to do that, that's fine, but if you're just enjoying the game casually, and you came to the game because you liked a specific unit, please just go pick that unit and have fun with the game. Don't become a slave to the meta, right? Because the meta will always change and always adjust, but your enjoyment of the game, that's in the moment, and that's hopefully going to be permanent for as long as the game lasts, right? That's the goal, at least. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the actual unit placements. I will preface this that some of the units that I put into this tier list might not be available through the book, so do keep that in mind. Check your selector and look at the list of units that are available if certain ones are not available, because I think it only goes up to Blooming Litica, but I have some units in here that are after Blooming Litica got released. So yeah, this is just for like future references. If you need to come back and there's another limited selector down the line and they have some of these units available, then you can use this as a reference point there. But Afternoon Soak Flan definitely going to be in the S tier, must-have category, pretty much seen across RTA, across PvP in general, on defense teams. She's on offense teams for Guild War, and also in Arena too. And she's definitely dominating in RTA. She's been dominating since she was released, and one of the best DPSs in the game with super good protection in the form of 100% evasion on her part. She has an AoE uncounterable attack, and she always crits on the opponent, and she'll always dual attack when someone else S1s. She combos really well with units that can defense break on their S1, for example, like Harseti, and she's also a really good bridge unit for the team. You can go first with a unit like Zio, S1, push up the Afternoon Soak Flan will S3 and push up the rest of your team, and just kind of have that snowball effect from there. She pairs really well with aggressive units like Eligos as well. S1 with the Eligos, Afternoon Soak Flan dual attacks, kills off a unit, procs Elegos' S2, you kill off another unit, right? Again, the snowball effect that she brings to the table is huge. She's also really good against tanky teams because none of her attacks penetrate defense, and that basically nullifies units like Empyrean Ilanov that most of their utility comes from defense penetration resistance for the team. A lot of strong hitting DPS units ignore defense, and Afternoon Soak Flan doesn't. She just hits like an absolute truck. So that's why she's up here in the S tier. Next up we have Tori in a very similar vein here. Tori also hits like an absolute truck, especially if you get the Cascade buff, which recently got buffed. So she deals even more splash damage now, which is fantastic. But the other great thing about Tori is that she is currently being used with a lot of buffers like Roz. Yeah, Tori and Roz, kind of meta right now, kind of interestingly enough. But it shouldn't surprise you because Tori has a passive that prevents her from losing more than half her health as damage per attack. So if your opponent would deal like 20k damage to her, and she only has 8k health, she's only going to take 4k damage, right? It's basically limiting the damage that she can take per hit, and that extends into barriers. So if you have a huge barrier that, let's say, is equivalent to 10k of your health, yeah, she will still, assuming she's still 8k health, right, she'll still take 4,000 damage. So if you have a 10k barrier, she'll take 4,000 damage from that, which means you still have 6,000 HP's worth of barrier left, right? And a Raz does just that, gives her a massive barrier when she falls below a certain amount of health, and she essentially becomes like unkillable, especially because she has a passive that prevents her buffs from being stripped. So you can't even take away the barrier that she has, and she'll just be there. You have to keep hitting her, and she will keep hitting you back whenever it's her turn. So yeah, Tori, solid unit. Both these units, by the way, can be used in PvE content because hard-hitting DPS units kind of kill enemies, and a dead enemy can't hurt you. So that's kind of nice. Yeah, Tori, fantastic unit. These two units, by the way, are both fire. There's a very fire-heavy meta right now in RTA, so do keep that in mind. There's not many ice units to keep them in check right now. Next up, we have Laia. Laia has been, since her release, a very good staple in the meta, and she's kind of, come and gone. Lately in the meta, she's kind of faded away a little bit, but she's slowly seeing a bit of a resurgence with more debuffers coming out. Right, with more openers that are debuffers getting played. So Laia's pretty decent. She does get pushed back by units like ML Politis, but she's really strong to things like ML Luna that can't do anything to stop her from cleansing the team. She can also cleanse herself from stuns and sleeps with her Sweet Miracle artifact, if you have that, and if you don't, then, it'll be available in the Selector ticket as well. Hopefully it's available there, but it's a really good one to pair with Laia. Yeah, Laia has dual attacks, and she has a very hard-hitting S3. If you soul burn it, it penetrates defense naturally, but you'll just ramp up the damage and potentially one-shot things that you had no business one-shotting at all. So yeah, Laia, very solid unit here to have very good utility as well. So in the PvP scene, definitely good in your roster. And next up, we have DN. She would never be here if it wasn't for her recent buff. So DN here actually does quite a bit. She got reworked a little bit, so now she attack buffs on her S2 while she pushes up and gives a barrier to everybody. If you have her EE, she'll push up by 15% with her S2, which is great. Actually makes her viable in an aggressive or a cleave team, potentially. More so aggro than cleave. She's not really fast enough for a cleave team. But in aggro teams, yeah, she can definitely work. Attack buffers that can push up combat readiness, huge for aggressive teams that want to just burst through your opponent's health, right? DN also has full buff cleanse, or full debuff cleanse, along with anti-crit buffs for the entire team, and penetration resistance for the entire team. So now she is really good at helping your team aggressively, but also super solid with helping your team defensively. Her penetration resistance is stronger than Ilanov's passive, and you get that anti-crit buff on the team. So if your opponent's DPS is trying to destroy your team, they have a 50-50 shot at not hitting their crit, which is huge. I know it's RNG, and RNG almost never works in your favor, but it's still better than being dead guaranteed 100% of the time, right? At least now you have an illusion of a 50% chance of survival. So yeah, DN, very, very good unit for turn cycling, for just buffing your team. solid option there. Really good with Tori too, by the way. If you're looking for, something to pair up, these two units are pretty good together. But yeah, DN, pretty solid. Next up, SSB, Seaside Bologna, one of the first limited units to get released in the game, and oh my god, is she still good. In PvE content, really solid for Wyvern clearing. Obviously, nowadays you don't really need her. You have things like Brieg, and you can definitely bring things like Mui along as well, a 3-star unit. But Seaside Bologna still really convenient for farming and such. People still use her in Wyvern teams, for example. She's also gotten buffs to the point where if you run her with Rengar's Special Drink, you can just build it with attack and you don't need crit rate or crit damage, which makes her a lot easier to build. She also is just a lot more resilient and tanky and adds a lot of bulk to your team. And her S2, her passive hit, where she does an extra attack onto the opponent, is an AoE attack. And I think that has a lot of value moving forward, especially with Boss Arunca being a thing, where you can't really hit anyone else with single target hits except Boss Arunca. It makes AoE more valuable, but also because, like I mentioned earlier, we're in a fire-dominated meta. We've already seen units like Karina and Arya start to make a little bit of a resurgence against things like the Tori and the A-Raz combos, for example. So Seaside Bologna can definitely see her place there too, which could be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, obviously, don't hedge your bets on her being good forever. Don't hedge your bets on any of these units being good forever. Even the best of units, like before Midnight Galilius, right here, by the way, super oppressive back then when she was first released, just absolutely one-shotting, demolishing knights left and right, one-shot, like absolutely you can't live type of one-shot, but now rarely sees any use. So metas change, just keep that in mind. But that's gonna be it for the S tier here. Now let's go ahead and move on to the A tier. These are units that are pretty solid, just not quite as versatile as the ones in the S tier. For example, Frida also has a CR push on her S3 and an attack buff that she gives the team. However, I'd say she's a little bit more niche than DN is. She's not in the niche category. She's a very good general enabler for aggressive teams, and she's also pretty good at countering things like Bellion, who don't let you soul burn. She allows herself to soul burn once free per turn or per match, and she allows the frontline unit to soul burn for free once per match. So you can actually use her with like a New Moon Luna, for example, in the front line, and then just soul burn, ignore res, seal everything, including your opponent's Bellion, just for a bunch of shenanigans, right? Usually they put debuffers in the front with Frida, or you can even put DPS units in the front with Frida, so you can soul burn them and then one-shot things like your opponent's Bellion into oblivion. So yeah, Frida, very solid unit, very good unit all around, and definitely deserves her spot there. Soul Weaver's again the spotlight though right now, because Young Senya I'm also going to place in the strong tier, not quite in the must-have, but that's really only because in a PvP based tier list, she doesn't really see that much RTA play. She's meant to counter Harsetti, but the problem with that is a lot of people already ban Harsetti in RTA as a pre-ban. And not only that, but Young Senya has to be paired with another Earth unit, which means you're typically drafting Young Senya with 2 other Earth units, right? Or you can ban protect an Earth DPS or something like a Mort, for example, and then have Young Senya, but then you run the risk of Young Senya getting banned, and maybe you pick Mort without any real purpose besides trying to pair with Young Senya. So you see where that issue comes, where she's limited in the draft, whereas you're not really limited in Guild Wars and Arena, and she's really good on defense in Guild Wars and Arena too, don't get me wrong. Solid on offense, but really annoying on defense. Yeah, Young Senya in RTA is just not, it's just a mess to work with. So just dropping her down from the must-have down to strong because of that. But if you're looking to fight against the AI, as in like Guild Wars and Arena, she might be like a must-have unit, so definitely can toe the line between these two, but I'm dropping her here because this channel was more RTA focused in general. So Young Senya is going to get that A tier from me. And we're also going to have Summertime Assyria join the party, essentially a Pirate Captain Flan, not even a budget Pirate Captain Flan. Pretty much if you set her up with her S1 EE that just detonates bombs immediately, she becomes Pirate Captain Flan. She has the same CR push as Pirate Captain Flan, just a different trigger. She has a good AoE that will detonate bombs, and she has an S2 passive that can plant bombs. Her S1 will plant bombs and detonate them on the same turn, just like Power Captain Flan, right? Power Captain Flan, a little bit, you know, a little bit different, slightly different, basically serves the same purpose. They're both good bridge units. Summertime Assyria pushes up the team with her S2, same with Power Captain Flan's passive. So yeah, Summertime Assyria, just a very solid unit in general. Being able to soul burn for free on her S1 once per match is huge. It basically allows you to go twice in one turn, just soul burn bomb, and 2 units are stunned now. So if you use it at the right time, you can definitely shut down your opponent's turns really easily. She also is deserving of this spot because we have a lot of good AoE openers now that are, you know, that can hit, especially with Fire Litica getting buffed. Fire Litica being paired with Summertime Assyria is wonderful. Hey, did I mention that as a fire dominated meta right now? Anyway, yeah, Summertime Assyria being incredibly good with Fire Litica makes her really versatile, right? Fire Litica has very little that can compete with her in terms of speed. I guess Ron can and Pera can, but those 2 units are not very seen in the meta right now. Zio can't hit her if she's on Guiding Light, and Harsetti, if you ban Harsetti, you don't have to deal with her, so yeah. That's pretty much it. You can't, it's just a speed battle. In a speed battle, if you're faster, you win. And Summertime Assyria fits very well in those types of teams. You can also build her really tanky though. I built mine like 20k HP, 1600 defense, I believe it was, 14 or 1600 defense. She is so tanky that it takes my opponents many turns to kill her, and by that time, you've already stunned and controlled your way that you probably have somewhat of an advantage over your opponent, right? Unfortunately, the Frenzy where you get extra bomb detonation damage is getting removed after this preseason, but she still can do really good damage even if you're not focusing on her attack stat. So yeah, Summertime Assyria, solid A tier. Alright, and honestly, that's kind of it for like the A tier. So I'm gonna move on to the B tier, which is going to start with Ocean Breeze Luluka. She's in the niche tier because she's not really as strong as Frida or young Senya for that matter, and definitely not as strong as DN. She has limited healing. Her Ice Cream buff allows you to heal, but only when the opponent hits you, and she does have cleansing, but it's only 2 debuffs, and also, you know, she gives a defense buff. She's more of a defensive Soul Weaver. Trying to use her as a defensive Soul Weaver into like aggressive teams just doesn't really work because ML Politis is a very common unit to see right now, and ML Politis kind of cuts focus and fighting spirit gains in half, and Ocean Breeze Luluka kind of needs that focus to get that the full focus bar out so she can extra attack into the opponent and like blind and silence them, right? So to get that off, you have to really bypass your opponent's, well, ML Politis, which is one of the main openers that use a non-attack skill. Ocean Breeze Luluka can push up herself when your opponent uses a non-attack skill, but ML Politis kind of, honestly, Luluka went from like up here in previous metas against like Hand Guy, right, and stuff like that in previous metas to here because a single unit, ML Politis, was released. It just kind of stifled her her uses, unfortunately. But yeah, still a niche unit, still can be used in certain circumstances against ML Calric, for example. You can still use her against things like DDR and like other like debuffers that have a really strong burst of debuffs at the start, or like a really strong non-attack skill at the start of the match and then kind of fizzle out later, right? So pretty solid in those cases. Lethe, I'm also putting in the niche category, really fell off ever since ML Shu came out. Alencia got more injury, and we start seeing injuries popping up on everybody. Harsettis are built on injury now, right? So Lethe is really struggling in that regard. However, she might see a bit of a resurgence with Boss Arunca around, being a unit that prevents you from attacking anybody else. Boss Arunca is really hard to deal with. Lethe, though, penetrates defense and deals massive single target damage to a single unit on the opponent's side. And yeah, you can definitely deal with Boss Aruncas much more easily with a Lethe on your team. Just keep in mind, you really have to avoid the injury, though. She's a very late pick in RTA, and even with her decent performance against units like Boss Arunca, it doesn't necessarily guarantee you're gonna win, or even one-shot her. The tankier Aruncas, they can build up to like 30k health, obviously at the sacrifice of defense, but those Arunkas are meant to withstand one-shotters like Lethe that ignore defense, right, or penetrate defense. So do keep that in mind. It's kind of a toss-up and a gamble in RTA, but hey, in arenas and Guild Wars could be a pretty reliable way of getting rid of boss Arunka, as long as they don't have injury and no defense penetration resistance, but that's probably going to be hard to come by. But yeah, Lethe is here, because she's niche, she's okay, has some applications. Same thing with Midnight Gala. Lilius used to be a powerhouse in the meta, just one-shotting anything that she wanted to. Now just kind of relegated to maybe you can use her sometimes if your opponent plays tanky but with no Empyrean Ilanov somehow, and you need a unit that's super fast and can, you know, take out a unit on your opponent's side really quickly. Midnight God Lilius is your gal. Yeah, definitely use her against things like, you know, let's say Last Rider Crow, Blue Crow, stuff like that, right? Where you just want to one-shot the knight, get rid of them. As long as they don't have resistance to her, it's all good. And then you push up your team, you give an attack buff to everybody, and you can kind of run that into a little snowball effect there. She's just harder to pull off because Harsetti exists, Zeo exists, Afternoon Flan exists, right? There's so many units that can bridge themselves that are faster in Gala, that can easily overwhelm her, so that's why she's in the niche category. Situational, but still good. Same thing with Landy. She got buffed actually, so now she starts the game with stealth, starts the match with stealth, kind of like having Guiding Light, which is really cool. It just doesn't refresh itself on subsequent turns, but Landy is pretty versatile because you can build her as a damage dealer, you can build her as a bridge unit, and you can build her as an opener. She CR pushes the team, she gives a speed buff to everybody, she punishes the opponent for having too many buffs. So Landy also might be a decent option into stuff like Boss Arunka, for example, where your whole team is hiding, their whole team is hiding behind a single unit, they're probably buffing each other, they're staying safe, but Landy has the ability to penetrate defense with her S3, and with her focus, fighting spirit gain, she can actually unleash very powerful hits. She can turn cycle everybody with the speed buff and the combat readiness push, keeping up with like Boss Arunka's turn cycling, for example. So you could be really, really devastating, especially into heavy buff teams like Tori teams or DN teams, for example, right? Pretty solid. Just kind of niche, kind of difficult to use because she's an Earth unit. Oh, look at that. Ocean Breeze Luluka, Midnight God Lilius, and Landy Earth units all in the B tier because we're being dominated by fire units up here. Very interesting to see how that plays out, right? Okay, but yeah, Landy definitely deserving of being decent here in the niche or okay-ish category, right? Pretty versatile in certain team comps, but depends on how you want to use her. Next up, we have Blooming Lidica. So she is niche, but she did get a little bit of a buff. Doesn't really help her all that much, honestly. She still has a ton of problems in my opinion, but the one thing she has going for her is that she is a decent bridge unit, and you can use her into things like Harsetti at times. You won't deal great damage with her, but you can still open up with things like Zeo and such into Harsetti teams, and you can do okay. Her artifact on her is really good, pushes back the opponent's combat readiness, so that you can keep on doing your thing with Blooming Lidica, pushing up your team and all that good stuff, right, with bridging and kind of snowballing your way to victory. So Blooming Lidica, good transition unit, just not a great damage dealer. I feel like they really gotta fix her, but it hasn't really happened yet. Also another Earth unit, by the way, just so you know. Seeing a pattern here? Probably. Alright, next up we have Fairy Tale Tenebria. I'm actually surprisingly putting her in the niche category and not in the outdated, mostly because she actually has pretty decent usage, and AoE Provoke, Redirected Provoke, is solid. I know that there's like better options out there, like Hellion Lua, for example. If you've been watching the channel, you'll know. But yeah, Fairy Tale Tenebria kind of does the same thing. She just suffers from having a low base speed. It doesn't mean that you can't make her fast, it's just really hard to. But Fairy Tale Tenebria, if you have the speed gear for it, she could actually be a decent unit to use against slower teams, right? I've seen people talk about using her into like Boss Arunka and stuff like that too. You just provoke the entire team into like a unit on your side, like a Yoha or a Crow or something. They deal a ton of damage, and then you can like, you know, destroy them back with revenge damage, right? So that's kind of cool. But Fairy Tale Tenebria, again, just not just held back with her speed. That's pretty much it. If she was faster, she could be like a Hellion Lua that instead of provokes to her, like Hellion Lua does, could redirect provoke to like another knight or someone else that's tankier on your team. But yeah, Fairy Tail Tenebria still has some use. I don't think she's quite outdated yet, but could use a little bit of help. Maybe an EE with speed. But yeah, next up we have Festive Ida. Festive Ida is going to be the last unit in the niche category, surprisingly, because she is not bad, but also kind of hard to set up. Her setup requires the opponent to break her out of stealth. So yeah, in order to punish your opponent with a bunch of debuffs and such, you kind of need to get hit first. So you're going to either bring her into like AoE teams and hope that your opponent AoEs, or has like a buff strip on their side, like if they open Emma Politis and they strip her stealth buff, for example, then that could be okay. So yeah, Festive Ida is alright, but again, because she requires your opponent to do something in order to punish them, a little bit more niche, but otherwise not a terrible unit, not bad. Carries pretty good strong debuffs on her kit, just needs the opponent to break her out of stealth. If she had a way to do it herself, that'd be kind of cool, honestly. Just a on-demand, like, skill, right? With the additional effect of like, hey, if your opponent does this, you also get that effect. It would be kind of nice to see. It would be interesting. But anyway, that's going to be it for the S, A, and B tiers. Now let's go to the outdated tiers, starting off with Ahmed. Fire Politis exists, so Ahmed immediately can't do anything. Same with Abyssal Euphine. Like, between the two of them, Ahmed literally can't be used. It just doesn't work. She requires the S2 into the S3, and that's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. So not with those two around, cutting combat readiness gains. Yeah, so Ahmed really just struggles from that. And honestly, at this point, like if you want an attack buffer that's really good for aggressive teams, Frida's the way to go. Next up we have Bibulus. Mort exists, so Bibulus sucks now. Bibulus used to punish counterattack units like ML Landy and ML Euphine, so you would counterattack, hit the Bibulus, Bibulus will extra attack into you, AoE strip all your buffs, and then defense break you, so that was devastating, but that requires the opponent to counterattack to begin with, which is RNG. You can't really control that. You might be hitting your opponent over and over and over again, and then they'll finally counter when it's not really great for you, or they might counter and then finish off your units anyway. So it was really reliant on proccing your opponent and getting hit, which sucked. It was unreliable. Now you just have Mort. Put the Great Mortelix on your team, your opponent can't counter, they're dead. Good job, you just won the game. So yeah, Bibulus unfortunately needs a little bit of help there in that regard. Cerise, she used to have she used to be the only unit with Restrict, and she used to be used with Fairy Tail Tenebria. There was a meta where they were dominating everything, but her base speed is way too low, so she can't be used in modern RTA, really. And she's no longer the only unit with Restrict. So many units get Restrict as a, EE attached to their skills, or they have it in their kit. Like Blooming Litica, for example, can apply Restrict to the opponents, which is kind of nifty. But yeah, Cerise, unfortunately, has just fallen off to the wayside, and she hasn't really gotten a buff. So looking forward to that, Smilegate, hopefully soon. Next up we have Luna. Luna really doesn't bring anything to the table besides just damage, and there's a lot of great damage dealers out there. You can't just deal raw damage anymore, right? She has no way of protecting herself, like Afternoon Soak Flawn with like evasion, or Tori with the damage limit that she has on how much damage she can take per turn. Luna's just probably going to get one shot. If you build her with full damage, she's going to have no bulk. It's just really difficult to use her. Unfortunate, because she's one of the most popular characters in the entire game. But yeah, she just deals damage. If you want to use her, you can use her in things like PvE, for example. I used to use her in expeditions, and I like my Dark Expedition, my Fire Expedition. I used to run her in other PvE content. You can use her in like a Wyvern, for example, for hunting as well. Yeah, you can find use for almost any unit here, just she's not quite the best use of that unit slot in some cases. We have Holiday Euphine that's next, and she's unique in the sense that she can cleanse your team fully by using an attack skill. So most cleansers, like let's say Mediator Cowwork, will full cleanse your team with a non-attack skill, which can be punished by Selene, Politis, and all that good stuff. Holiday Euphine doesn't do that, and she also pushes up your team with her S3, which is kind of cool. The issue is she just has really unreliable evasion, so if you're and she's gonna be slow. So if you're getting hit by your opponent, there's a really good chance that you're not gonna evade, and then she's not gonna do her job. So yeah, if they just made her a bit more consistent, she would actually probably skyrocket up in use. But because she's inconsistent, and you want consistency, especially with cleansers, she's gonna be sticking down here in the outdated category, sadly. Summer Break Charlotte is the last unit here, probably the worst limited unit that we have, unfortunately. She's just not good in any content. PvP, PvE, I tried to make her work with like Harsetti and stuff too for funny team stuff. It just didn't happen. She definitely needs a buff. Her damage is kind of lackluster, and whether you use her as an aggressive unit, there's better options like ML Ludwig, you have ML Teu, for example. They're just super consistent and strong, and she just can't keep up. Dual attacks are a little gimmicky as well, and her whole, like, you know, dual attack every few turns is pretty much just a way worse version of Afternoon Soak Flan, where as long as your ally S1s, Afternoon Soak Flan will dual attack at the cost of 1 focus. Summer Break Charlotte needs to ramp up to 4 turns. You know, you need to take 4 turns, 4 people need to take turns before she gets the guaranteed dual attack. So yeah, it's sad. But that's going to be it for the limited 5-star Hero Selector tier list, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, but now let's move on to the limited 5-star Artifact Selector tier list. Okay guys, so let's go ahead and dive right into the 5-star Artifact Selector tier list. The tiers are going to remain the exact same as the Hero Selector one, so I don't think we need to really dive into detail on that there, right? So let's start off immediately with our S tier Guiding Light, the probably most impactful artifact on the entire game. If Tagahel's Ancient Book is the artifact of mages, Guiding Light is the artifact of rangers. Pretty much every single supportive, and even in most cases like DPS rangers, can just slap Guiding Light on them and then they're good. Guiding Light provides you stealth at the start of the match, which means you can't be hit by single target attacks, which lets you avoid things if you're an opener like Zio, for example, who's guaranteed to be the fastest unit in the match all the time, unless they have a scuffed Zio. But Guiding Light also absolutely amazing because at the end of every turn, you have up to a 70% chance to regain stealth for 2 turns. If you have units who take extra turns, that's 2 chances at a 70% chance to get an extra 2 turns of stealth, which is huge. So yeah, Guiding Light is very strong. Makes so many rangers that used to be so vulnerable into things that you can't hit. So that's why it's in the S tier. And guess what follows after that? That's right, Wall of Order. So if you've been sticking around for a little bit, you knew that Wall of Order got a buff recently, and it basically became Guiding Light. The only thing is that you don't start the match with stealth, but you are guaranteed at 100% chance to get stealth at the end of every turn. So at the cost of starting with it, you have a lot more consistency throughout the match. Probably good for maybe some DPS units that go after you have an opener. So you have some sort of an opener that allows you to go, pushes up your DPS units, you go. DPS units here, by the way, you have a chance to proc a greater attack buff for every buff your opponent has on their team. So if they're playing very defensive and they have all these buffs up, you can push up, get that greater attack buff. You can just, I don't know, smack your opponent for a bunch of damage, and then go into stealth and you can't be hit. So it's wonderful. Again, on the same tier as Guiding Light, just because guaranteed stealth is something that is super strong. And if you're in doubt of that, well, look no further than Bossarunka, who essentially lets the entire team stealth behind her. Yeah, these 2 artifacts, absolutely amazing. You should have multiple copies of Guiding Light if possible, and at least 1 Wall of Order, right? 1 Wall of Order is good, good enough at the very least. Okay, next we have Sweet Miracle, which is Laya's artifact, can be used on ML Pera as well. Very strong, reduces the, once every 3 turns, you reduce the duration of debuffs on yourself by 1 turn, which might not seem like a lot on paper, but it is a lot. You can't be stunned, you can't be slept, you can't be controlled, you're gonna be going, and especially on cleansers like Laya and ML Pera, it's huge. People put this thing on C. Lilius's back in the day, so you couldn't, like, stop her right? If you wanted to stun her at the start of the match, you can't stop her from going afterwards. They put them on ML Shu, they put them on a bunch of warriors. It's really nice, especially because it gives you a lot of HP as well. So yeah, Sweet Miracle definitely deserves a spot in the must-have category. If you don't have it, get yourself one. And then the last one in the S tier is gonna be Soul Consolation. Soul Consolation is so good because it allows you to push up your combat readiness if a non-attack skill is used. This thing is used on Frida, this thing is used on Soul Weavers that want to cut the opponent. You can use it on things like Bunny Dom as well if you really want to. You don't have Frida, Bunny Dom's a decent option for more aggressive team comps. It's really good for just pushing up Soul Weavers that can cleanse your team. Ocean Breeze Lulika comes to mind. I mean, this is her artifact after all. She can push up a bunch of combat readiness, so you don't have to build as much speed to cut your opponent's openers and then cleanse the team and all those shenanigans. It will also give you a bit of effect resistance to boot, which is really nice for rounding out your stat line. So yeah, Soul Constellation, solid overall artifact, can be used both, can be used mostly defensively and reactionary to your opponent, but can be a very good thing to make or break certain matches, right? Cutting the opponent or not makes a big difference. Okay, next up we have Fairy Tale for a Nightmare in the A tier. Fairy Tale for a Nightmare does a lot of fixed damage, like a lot of fixed damage, and it's been buffed, I believe, as well to deal a little bit more. Yeah, this is really good. Archdemon Shadow, not only just Fairy Tale Tenebria herself, Champion Zerato in some cases, very niche unit, but in some cases can be good. Arya works very well with Fairy Tale for a Nightmare, especially with Tori around. You might want to deal a lot of fixed damage to kind of break through the, Araz barrier and things that people are putting on Tori. Yeah, fixed damage is very meta, very much the way to go. Fallen Cecilia is starting to counter it. Her passive cuts fixed damage by a good amount, but still, fixed damage is what makes the world go round. That's why Specialty Change Amiki is so strong, right? Her fixed damage is incredibly good against evasion units. Seaside Bologna with Rengar's Special Drink, which we'll talk about later, also really good because of things like Fire Flawn and evasion being a thing. So yeah, Fairy Tale for a Nightmare, good stuff. Also, it gives you a really solid chance at dispelling a buff from the opponent too every time you attack, which is really good. Maybe not against Tori, but really good against other things, especially buff heavy teams like from DN and such, buffing everybody up on the team, right? Next up we have Prairie of Solitude. This is a Lethe's artifact, but aside from Lethe, you can put this on so many warriors. I use mine on Alencia, for example. It just increases their max health by a ton, and then increases their damage output as well if you're doing extra attacks. So Alencia does have extra attacks with her S1, very solid there. Lethe as well has extra attack when she gets her 3 stacks of Omen on the opponent. So Prayer of Solitude is, yeah, really good, but a little bit niche, but I would say still strong because it can be used on multiple units, and just the HP bonus in general is enough to warrant it being good. Any base, it's not even increasing the base stats, it takes your current HP stat that you have on your unit and it gives it a percentage, right? In this case I think it's like 15% you can get for your HP. And so if you have a 30k health Alencia, slapping 15% more health on that is a lot more health, right? So really good. Next up we have Draco Plate, a damage dealing artifact. Pretty strong, gives you extra crit damage, not bad, good for warriors. Does battle for the slot for Sigurd's Scythe though, so if you have someone that wants to recover health, probably not the best thing. Draco Plate does reduce the amount of crit damage that you take though, so that could be an upside. So yeah, that it's just a solid damage dealing artifact, pretty good in general. Can be used on so many units, right? It's versatile, that's why it's here in the A tier, it's strong. Mature Sunglasses, same thing, but for knights. I actually use mine on like Brieg, for example. So it does increase your critical hit damage and reduces damage that you take from all sources, which is not bad, it's pretty solid. Defensive mixed with offensive, always a good mixture, right? So that's why Draco Plate and Mature Sunglasses are both here. Next up we have the niche category, and oh boy, what can you get that's more niche than Star of the Deep Sea? Summertime Assyria's artifact that allows you to put bombs on the opponent when you attack them with a single target attack. Guess what? Pirate Captain Flan detonates bombs when you attack with a single target attack. Summertime Assyria has an EE that lets you detonate bombs on her S1. So yeah, that becomes essentially an auto stun machine. Pirate Captain Flan and Summertime Assyria, if they S1 and you plant the bomb on your opponent, boom, they're stunned, right? The check, by the way, for resistance happens when you apply the bomb. The stun is guaranteed if the bomb gets applied and is detonated. So as long as you can land the bomb, once it detonates, it's a guaranteed stun. Unless your opponent has immunity, in which case, then they don't get stunned. But yeah, Star of the Deep Sea, really good for those two units. Pretty solid if you like to build like Summertime Assyria or you want to build Pirate Captain Flan. Definitely need Star of the Deep Sea for them to work very efficiently. Dreamlake Holiday is really good for Afternoon Soak Flan, her best in slot artifact. I don't know anyone else who uses it, but that's for her, and she is S tier. So if you want to get her, you might want to get this too. Next up is Proof of Friendship, Young Senya's artifact. It's a pretty good artifact. I would highly recommend having that on your Young Senya. Just really good because it allows you to get more HP for herself and the frontline unit, which is huge. It's like Prayer of Solitude, right? But it's a bit more niche because you do have to have it on her essentially and like an earth unit on your side. But Proof of Friendship, still good, really good for Young Senya, and Young Senya is relevant in the meta right now. Rengar's Special Drink, pretty much only used for like Seaside Bellona. Sometimes you'll see people use it on like Yuna, but Yuna is not really a PvP unit. She's not really seen at all. Some people like to use her as a pocket pick for fun, but in general, you're probably not going to be pulling her off very consistently. Rengar's Special Drink though, fantastic for Seaside Bellona. Highly recommend you put this on her if you're using her. This scales with attack, so you don't need to build crit or crit damage on your Seaside Bellona if you don't want to. You can build straight attack and all the rest into bulk. Seaside Bellona doesn't even need speed either, because she can cleanse her debuffs with her S2 every time it procs. Alright, next up we have Hostess of the Banquet, which I'm putting in niche because BBK can use it if you're building a Resistance BBK. Resistance Genoa can also build it. Like, you get 30% resistance just for free, just for having this plus 15 artifact on that unit. It's huge. I also put it on Elvira because, I mean, 30% resistance on a unit that needs resistance. Come on now. It deals a lot more damage too against your opponent if you are, I believe, like a certain HP thresholds and stuff, but yeah, damage doesn't always matter because the resistance is what does. And in this case, damage plus resistance, defensive plus offensive. Yes, please, sign me up. Hostess of the Banquet, pretty solid. You can also use it on Gala. Some people will resist Gala Liliuses, but yeah, not really required for her. There are better things that you can use on her, like Wind Rider, for example, or even I like to use Genoa's artifact on her. So yeah, pretty fun stuff. Next up we have Seductive Flower, really strong on Blooming Litica, but that's about it. Allows you to apply the decent debuffs and stuff to your opponent, right? It's just good in general onto your Blooming Litica. Seductive Flower, if you're getting Blooming Litica, this is probably the one you want to go for, but if you don't have it, she can work on other artifacts. It's just a little bit weird. Again, most Rangers were designed with the fact that Guiding Light exists, and no one uses anything but Guiding Light in most cases, like 95% of cases. Kind of like how most mages don't use anything besides Tagehal's Ancient Book, right? And then next up we have Champion's Trophy. It's a good artifact. If you attack with a basic attack, you can stun your opponent. You have a good chance. And some units have basic attacks that are AoE. Keep in mind this is only for warriors though, so you can't slap this on Bellion and S1 and stun everybody. But hey, Bad Cat Armin, for example, as an AoE S1, that's pretty good, and you can stun everybody with it. So yeah, solid to have. Not really needed, probably on the tail end of niche, right? Same to a Spotted Mouse hair tie. It gives you souls, which is cool, but yeah, it doesn't give you enough. You probably have to like max it out and stuff for it, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Anything that gives you souls is never bad. It's like Tagehal's Ancient Book, but less good. Still pretty solid. Anything that gives souls in an artifact is good, especially if it's for free at the start of the match. It's like a Fire Krau's artifact, just gives you 10 souls at the start of the match for no reason. Go for it. Easy soul burn, right? This is for like Frida, like it is Frida's artifact, but you can use it on other soul weavers. Obviously, it allows you to get souls at the start of the match, 10 souls I believe, and then you get souls from soul burning. So you get to kind of snowball your soul burns into more soul burns. Not terrible, not bad though. It's just not super strong and versatile like up there. Soul Consolation, oh, so much more versatile than this. But yeah, this is pretty good. And then that's about it for the niche category. Going to outdated, I mean, we have Unfading Memories. It's kind of like Rod of Amaryllis, but instead of healing the lowest health person by a ton of health, you're healing everyone on your team for a little bit of health. It's alright in some cases, just not really seen in PvP or PvE content. Could use a little bit of a buff. Magic Bubble Maker, I wouldn't say it's terrible, but it's also not like amazing. Keep in mind that this is on mages, and well, there's plenty of artifacts like Tagahel's Ancient Book that you can put on your mages. Yeah, so that's gonna go out there. Feat of Criticism, that's Tori's artifact, but it starts you off with a barrier, increases your attack, by a good percentage, but it starts you off with a barrier, and that's about it. You can also use Genoa's artifact, which can keep giving you barriers every time you S3 on Tori, which is kind of cool. Or you can just run damage artifacts, right, like Wind Rider and stuff on Tori, and that's also really cool. Feat of Criticism just doesn't really offer all that much for Tori herself. It is made for her, but it's just a little bit lacking compared to what other things offer. Old Gardening Shears, Biblis's artifact. No one really uses it. It's for rangers and stuff, but yeah, you kind of have Guiding Light, so anything compared to Guiding Light is not going to be as good. And honestly, that's about it. In the future, if we have limited artifact selectors and you're allowed to pick this, I don't know if this is gonna be there, but MOAS is the new like Rocket Punch Gauntlet. It's just the Epic 7 version of it, not the collab version. So it's pretty good. That's definitely gonna deserve like an S tier category if in the future this is available for you to select. But anyway, guys, that is it for the limited 5-star artifact selector tier list. Let me know what you guys think of this list or any of the things that we talked about in the video in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being patient and for waiting for this video. I will catch you in the next one. Take care.